Today's daf, Bezras Hashem, is daf Masechta Menachos Daf Lamed Ches, and we will begin from about Lamed Zayin Amud Beis, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines from the bottom. So we're just finishing up the last parak, and then we're going to start the new parak, both talking about the mitzvah of tzitzis. We learned in the Mishnah, Rabbi Shmuel Oima Abaten Arba mitzvahs. You get 4 mitzvahs for putting on 4 tzitzis on your beged. Amar Rabbi Huda, Amar Shmuel, halacha Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Shmuel said the halacha is like Rabbi Shmuel, but the Gemara concludes v'leis hilchasa kavasei. Halacha is not like him, and as the Gemara is going to tell a story, which shows that the halacha is not like Rabbi Shmuel, because the Gemara says a story like this. Let's make it bigger. Ravina Hava ko ozol abasrei de Mar Baravashi. Ravina was following Mar Baravashi. Okay, b'shabsa derigla, on the Shabbos that Mar Baravashi was the Shabbos speaker. They used to have before the Yom Tiv, have the rabbi give a speech regarding the halachas of the Yom Tiv. So as he's probably going home, if sigkarna dechute, one of his tzitzis fell off, came apart and separated from his beged. So now he has only 3 tzitzis on his beged. According to Rabbi Shmuel, you're still allowed to continue on because you're still getting at least 3 mitzvahs. You're not getting 4 mitzvahs, but you're getting 3. According to the Tanakama, the whole mitzvah is possible. You're not getting anything. So therefore, it's like carrying a load, because the tzitzis are generally not considered part of the beged if you're not makayim a mitzvah. They're valuable for itself. They were difficult material to put together. So even though they're tied to the beged, but since you're missing 1 tzitzis, so it's if you're carrying in the street. So Mar Baravashi was carrying on Shabbos. But the interesting thing is, Ravina, who saw the whole event, he did not tell anything to Mar Baravashi. Hey, you're carrying on Shabbos. Say, when Mar Baravashi came home, so Ravina told him, Mahasim Ifsik, look at your tzitzis, you're missing 1 tzitzis fell off. Amalei, so Mar Baravashi said, if you would have told me on the street that my tzitzis came off, 1 tzitzis came off, Mahasim Shidisei, I would have taken off my whole tzitzis in the middle of the street and left it there. But you made me carry on Shabbos. Says the Gemara, but Va'amamar, but didn't we learn Gadol Kovet Habrias Shadoiches Loises Shabbatayra? A Kovet Habrias will override any lav in the Torah. There's a lav. Gemara is assuming that the lav of not carrying on Shabbos will be overridden. Will be overridden in case it requires Mar Baravashi to take his clothing off in the street, and it's not respectful for Mar Baravashi to do that. So he would have been allowed to continue on. So how did Mar Baravashi say that I would have taken it off in the street? Answers the Gemara, Tirgama Rav Bashaba Kamed Rav Kahana. You go to Amid Aleph on Lamed Ches Amid Aleph, but Lav the Loy Saser. We're on top of Lamed Ches Amid Aleph. That the only time that you say Gavol Kodroid Habrias Shadoiches Loises Shabbatayra, that the Kavod Habrias will override a lav, it's not every lav in the Torah. It's only the lav that the Torah tells you that listen to the Rabbanans. For example, there's a mitzvah of muktzah, right? There's a mitzvah of muktzah d'Rabbanan. So in ancient times, they didn't have toilet paper, so they brought stones. So you're going to say that stones to carry stones on Shabbos is muktzah. But if you're using the restroom on Shabbos in the outhouse, so then you could override the Issa d'Rabbanan of Kavod Habrias, will override the Issa of muktzah, which muktzah anyway is a Issa d'Rabbanan. But a regular Issa d'Raisa, which is written in the Torah, would not have been overridden. So therefore, back to the story. If Mar Baravashi's tzitzis became broken on Shabbos, he would have been required to remove his tzitzis in the middle of the street. Others say the version of the story is a little different. Mahasan Amalei, that Ravina told Rav Mar Baravashi right away, oh, your tzitzis fell off. So v'amalei. So Mar bar Rav Ashi said, "My daitech lemishdei." What do you mean? I should take off my whole clothing now? What are you telling me? V'amar, I'm not going to take off my tzitzis now. V'amar, Mar bar Rav Ashi told Ravina, Gadol kavod habriya shadeches loises shebetayra. That kavod habriyas overrides a loises shebetayra, and therefore, I'm not going to take off my tzitzis right now. Says the Gemara, but that's not true. That it covered a brios would override only at Issa Durabanan. So how can Bar Rav Ashi tell Ravina that I'm not taking off my tzitzis in the middle of the street because the covered a brios overrides the lav of carrying in Shabbos? That's not true. Not every lav is overridden because of covered abrios. And says the Gemara, Hachinami bekarmelis derabonani. They were dealing with a karmelis, which is a type of rishus that's only also derabonan to carry. Oh, so if that's the case, then Mar bar Rav Ashi is right. He doesn't have to remove his pasal tzitzis in the middle of the street because that's not respectful. He was allowed to carry it home on Shabbos. But what you do see from all these stories is that we don't paskin like Rabbi Shmuel. The fact that one tzitzah fell off the tzitzis, the garment of Mar bar Rav Ashi, disqualified the whole mitzvah. And it's not like Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Shmuel says if one tzitzah falls off, okay, you're not going to get 4 mitzvahs, but you're going to get 3 mitzvahs. We don't paskin like Rabbi Shmuel. Hadron alach hakoymitz. Now we begin the second. Begin this new parak. Here the Mishnah is discussing. We're going to learn the Mishnah simply. And then we're going to learn the Gemara is going to say that's not the way to learn the Mishnah, according to this opinion. The mitzvah of tcheles and lavan, you have to put in your tzitzis 2 strings. Tzitzis has 4 strings, basically. You double it over, you get 8. But you put 2 in the hole of white strings and 2 in the hole of blue wool colored tcheles, right? So that is the mitzvah of tzitzis. So what the Mishnah is saying over here, hatchelis. Let's say you're missing 2 blue strings. So it doesn't stop you from putting in 4 white strings. Again, normally you're supposed to put in 2 blue and 2 white. However, if you're missing tchelis, so still you could be mekayim the mitzvah by putting in 4 white strings. V'halavan. And same idea. If you're missing white strings, so then put in 4 blue strings, which is okay. It's not going to stop you from being mekayim the mitzvah of tcheles. So you could continue on to be mekayim the mitzvah. And that's the mitzvah of tzitzis. Says the Gemara, says the Mishnah, tefillah shel yad. Let's say you're missing your tefillin shel yad. Eina ma'akeves es shel roish. It doesn't stop you from wearing the tefillin shel roish. Lo yaleinu in the war, maybe somebody snuck in a tefillin, so he only had the tefillin shel roish. He didn't have the tefillin shel yad, and people would line up. So you still get a mitzvah. V'shel roish einu ma'akeves es shel yad. If you're missing the shel roish, it will not stop you from being mekayim one mitzvah of the mitzvah of putting on the tefillin shel yad. So is the Gemara. So right away you see that you could be mekayim the mitzvah of tzitzis. Either you're missing the blue tzitzis or you're missing the white tzitzis. You could still be mekayim the mitzvah. Says the Gemara, Leima masnisin the like Rebbe. So let us say that our Mishnah doesn't go according to Rebbe. The Tanya, we learned in a Braisa, Risam oisoi, you have to see your tzitzis. And the Torah says tzitzis has to be made of what the garment was made. So typically, a garment was made of white linen. So your tzitzis has to be somewhat white. Then the Torah says, I want it to be blue also. Tcheles, blue wool. So therefore, you have to put both, a white tzitzis and a blue tzitzis. And then the Torah says, and then you'll see it. So it's referring to the blue and white. This teaches us that one without the other, you're not makayim a mitzvah. You need both. They uphold the mitzvah. Each one upholds the mitzvah. Devrei Rebbe. Chachamim disagree. Ein ma'akvim. If you don't have one, the white, you can wear the blue. If you don't have the blue, you can wear the white. So my time at the Rebbe. What is the reason of Rebbe? The ksiv, because the Torah says hakanof, make the tzitzis out of the same material, out of the same color as the garment. Min kanaf, it should be the same type color as the garment. Normal garments at those times were white, so the tzitzis has to be white. And then the Torah tells you uksiv psil tcheles, make one of them, one of the tzitzis should be dyed blue. And then the Torah says, when you see it meaning both the blue and the white, then you did the mitzvah. So ad the ikatervayu b'chad, until you have both sets, the blue and the white, only then you're mekayim the mitzvah of tzitzis. Rabbanan who said that you can mekayim one without the other, because urisim oisoi kolchad l'chudei b'mashma. According to the Chachamim, the oisoi is singular, and it's the Torah is telling you that even if you only see one, even if you only see white tzitzis, you still get a mitzvah. Or even if you only see blue tzitzis, you get a mitzvah. So our Mishnah seems to imply that you could be mekayim a mitzvah even if you're missing blue tzitzis. Lema, are you going to say our Mishnah to like Rebbe? Our Mishnah does not go like Rebbe. Answers the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav, Afilu Tema Rebbe. You could say our Mishnah goes even according to Rebbe. Rebbe says you need blue and white. So how do you interpret our Mishnah according to Rebbe? Our Mishnah is teaching you Ela Lakadein. Very interesting. When you put the tzitzis through the hole, okay, there is a mitzvah to put the strings, the white strings first. So you put the first white string in the hole and then the second white string. Then you're supposed to put the two blue strings. So our Mishnah is teaching you that if you put the blue strings first, then you put the white strings first, that still you get the mitzvah. That's what our Mishnah says. If you messed up the order, but not that if you're missing something. The Tanya we learned in the Braisa, mitzvah lahagdim lavan l'tcheles. The mitzvah is to put the white strings in the hole first, and then you put the blue ones. V'im higdim tcheles l'lavan. But if you put the letter one, the second, the blue one, and then you put the white one, yatsa, you're yaitza the mitzvah. Ella shechisa mitzvah, you did not get them. You didn't do the mitzvah. What does that mean? That's you get the mitzvah and you didn't do the mitzvah. So the Gemara is going to say, my chisa mitzvah. What do you mean you didn't get the mitzvah? You told me you're yaitza the mitzvah, and then you tell me you're missing the mitzvah. So lema, we go to Amid Beis. Chisa mitzvah the love and the kaim mitzvah the tcheles. That if you messed up the order, so you don't get the mitzvah of you get the mitzvah of tcheles, but you didn't get the mitzvah of lavan because you put it in after the tcheles. According to Rebbe, you need to have both the white and the blue in there in order to get the mitzvah. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav. So Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav explains that if you put the blue tzitzis first and then you put the white tzitzis, you did a mitzvah and you get the mitzvah of tzitzis. Shechisa mitzvah also mitzvah. My v'chisa mitzvah. You missed something. The like ovid mitzvah min ha bufchar. You didn't do the mitzvah the way it's the best way to do it. And so the best way to do it is, according to Rebbe, you need both. If you're missing blue tzitzis, forget it. You can't be mekayim the mitzvah of tzitzis. But if you have blue tzitzis and you have white tzitzis, the mitzvah is to put the white tzitzis in first in the hole and then the blue tzitzis. But if you reverse the order, then you get the mitzvah of tzitzis, but you didn't do it so properly. And the truth is that although one would think that the order matters, the truth is that the mitzvah, you have to do the ma'aseh mitzvah, the action of the mitzvah. But the Torah always gives a leeway on the order. If you didn't do the order 100% properly, you still get the mitzvah. Like you could put the shal roish on first, and then you shal yad, you get the mitzvah. But you didn't do it properly. So the Gemara says, okay, if that's the way you're going to explain our Mishnah, that makes perfect sense. Lavan the einam akav as tcheles. When the Mishnah says that if you did not put in the white strings first, it doesn't stop you from putting in the blue strings first. Because if you put the blue strings first and then the white strings first, okay, you did the mitzvah. But what does the Mishnah mean? Tchelis the eina ma'akeves esalavim. That if you did not put the blue strings first, and you put the white strings first, you got the mitzvah anyway. Mahi, what does that mean? Of course, that's the proper way to do it. You first put the white strings in first, and then the blue strings first. So how would you explain the Mishnah that way? Amar Rabbi Bachama says, that there's an exception. If you have your garment is like blue wool, is colored tchelis, colored blue, then in that case, the order is reversed. Your mitzvah would be to put the blue strings first and then the white strings. So that's normally you put the white strings in first and then the blue strings. However, if you have a blue garment, that's the chiddush of the Mishnah, that you should put the blue strings first, then the white strings first, then the white string second. But either way, if you missed it, if you mess up the order, you were still yaitz the mitzvah. Itmaname, we learned the same thing. Amalei Levi l'Shmuel. Levi said to Shmuel, Aryech, you are a lion. Lion means that we always paskin like Shmuel. He's the king, like the king of the jungle. So we always paskin like Shmuel. So Levi said to Shmuel, don't sit down don't sit down on your knee, I guess, until you tell me. Maybe they sat in both positions until you explain me these things. What does the Mishnah mean? Mahi. So Shmuel explained it exactly like we just explained it. We paskin like Rebbe that you need both blue strings and white strings. That and how to set up the strings of tzitzis. The mitzvah laktubin levan bereisha. You're supposed to put the white strings in first and then the blue strings. My tama. Hakonaf. The Torah first tell you hakonaf psat cheres. Hakonaf, put the strings that look like the garment itself. Normal garments were white, so min kanaf. Put the strings that look like the garment itself. The aktim cheres l'lavam. But if you put the blue strings first, less lamba, there's no problem with that. And now, so Levi asked back to Shmuel, okay, Teinach, you explained to me, Lavan Deinamakav is the chelis. You explained to me that the white strings, if you do not put the white strings in first, it doesn't stop you from putting the blue strings. But chelis Deinamakav is Lavan. But if you didn't put the blue strings first and you put the white strings first, what does the Mishnah mean by that? Telling you that, okay, you were yaitza? I mean, that's the way it's supposed to be done. Amalei, Rami Bachama. So this Rami Bachama said, a tchalis that's completely blue. Oh, in that case, there the mitzvah lakdume tchelis bereisha. First, put the tchelis first, the blue strings first. The hakonaf min kanaf, because we want to put the strings that most resemble the color of the garment. So therefore, if the garment is blue, then you put the blue strings in first. Be aktim love and bereisha, but if you're going to put the white strings first, less lamba, there was no problem with that. So that's the way Abaya explained the Mishnah. So Rava said, Midi tziva kagarim. How can you explain the Mishnah this way? Is the color the most important over here? Since most garments are made of white, what Rava is disturbed by, since most garments are made of white, so even if your garment was made of blue, why should I put the blue strings first? Most garments are white, and the Torah says, the Torah, when it was talking, it was referring to a white garment. And the Torah says, always put the white strings first. So how could you put the blue strings first? Ella Amar Rava explained the Mishnah differently. And basically, the Mishnah could go like Rabbi, but the Mishnah is talking about something totally different. Again, according to Rabbi, you must put in both two blue strings and two white strings. But what happens if they got cut? Let's say you have a tzitzis, and some of the tzitzis got cut. As you can see, it got cut. Your blue strings, all your blue strings got cut, right? So maybe you're going to have 4 blue strings and 4 white strings. So they all got cut. So the blue strings got cut, or the white strings. So the Gemara, that's what the Mishnah says. The Igadam Tchelis V'Koy Loven. If the blue strings got cut and you still have white strings, it's still good. since you started out as a nice pair of tzitzis, so even if it gets cut, it's still fine. Agadam lavan, if the white strings got cut, and what remained was the blue strings, less lamba, there's no problem with that. Because as long as you started off with 4 white strings, four hanging down, 4 white strings and 4 blue strings, if subsequently either color got cut, there's no problem with that. When you cut the tzitzis, if it gets cut down, it's kosher. Same thing with other mitzvahs. They have a certain shear that they start off, but if it got cut, the azov that you use, the hyssop that you use to sprinkle the paraduma waters, if it got cut, it's still kosher. We don't say that by a tashmishi kedusha like a tefillin. If it got cut, then it's puzzle. We only say that by, let's say, tzitzis. If it gets cut, it's still fine. The kama shir gadumin, how much has to be left? I mean, it can't be totally cut off. Omar bash hamdudi amashmul kedei la'anvan, has to be enough that you can make a slip knot. So if you can see in the picture over here of a tzitzah that got cut, but you can actually make a slip knot on the tzitzah. So then let's say it's an inch left, then it's still kosher. So the question was, kidei la'anvan, what does it mean that they have to make a slip knot? La'anvan kule bahadadi. Do you have to make that means that you take all the tzitzis that were cut, let's say the 4 blue ones that were cut, do they have to form a slip knot together? So that means each one has to be a little bit longer because you're connecting it to the others. Or what he meant was that each one has to be cut where it can, up to the point where you can make each string can make a little slip knot on itself. It doesn't need to be long enough to connect to the others. So Teku, the Gemara remains by a question. Boya Ravashi. Ravashi asked a theoretical question. Alima doloy anve. Let's say you have a string. Because it's thick, physically you can't make a slip knot. Maybe it's it's unbendable, so it doesn't make a slip knot. You have a continue, but if this tzitzah was thinner, me'anve, it would be able to make a slip knot. Is that okay? Because theoretically you can make a slip knot, but physically you can't because the string is too thick. Certainly it's good because as a thick string, people could see it from afar. The minka mitzvah, you could see the mitzvah. Whereas if it's too small, that's why you can't make a slip knot, no one can see it. But if the string is thick, even though physically you can't make a slip knot, it's still going to be good. And concludes the Gemara, and here we'll stop. Mantana, who is the author of the Abraisa, who's the author that argues? Who holds like we hold bisman hazeh, that if we don't have tchelis, we can still wear 4 strings of white. The Polig Alei the Rebbe that argues on Rebbe. Hi Tana, who it's the following Tana. Tanya, we learned to the Brisa, Rabbi Yitzchak, Mishum Rab Nasan, Shama Mishum Rab Yosef Glili, Shama Mishum Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri is the author. And that is, Ein Leit Chelas, if you don't have blue wool, Mata Lovem, then just put in 4 white strings. And that's it. That's how we would paskin. Okay, so that ends the Daf Lamed Ches.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
A good Tanakh, everyone.